Welcome back to another video. This one I'm going to show you how you create that loot explosion type thing whenever you have a player and then you've killed a monster or another player or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and demo how that looks. So I've got my little player here. Now let's say I were a monster and I were to die, and then I explode and then I throw out all this loot. So it just hangs around for a little while and it just kind of sits there, and you keep doing this over and over. So every time a monster is killed, you can upchuck a whole bunch of different random items, and then after a certain amount of time they disappear because they will destroy themselves. So let's get started on how this works, and I'm going to switch over to just a generic single sprite because this requires to have the multiple parts like this requires to use my other video for the CSV. You can create your own little table and stuff to do your own types of loot. It's not a big deal to do that. And to change over, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here and set this sprite to something. And then I need to come down here and disconnect these. And I'll go over these at the end of the video. That's not the intent of this video, to show how I explode all those sprites. My intent's just to show how I do the sprite in general. So we'll definitely cover this part briefly. It's part of that other CSV video, and that thing is pretty handy. It makes it really easy to manage loot tables. So, all right, so let's begin here. What we're going to do is we're going to come up here to where we actually instantiate, because this part itself is down here on this loot spawner. So we have a prefab that is instantiated, and then this part runs, and that's how we end up with the explosion kind of look. So let's go up here to our game start. This is where I have my instantiate. Okay, so here's where I'm hitting tab. So the first thing we're going to do on this thing is this is just a general instantiate. I'm sure everybody's done this at one point or another. So you're just going to hit tab, and what I'm doing here is I'm using a for loop and then a random number of items. So I have 0 to 10 items being regurgitated at any point in time based on whatever this trigger might be. So we're going to set our player, we're going to get our player, and then we're going to get our position, because this will be the position where we want it to upchuck. So if I have a monster or something, then this would be the monster's game object, and then that position for that. Then we come in with the standard instantiate, and we get the rotation, and then we also do a parent. So I like to set a parent so everything is nice and grouped up here under its own little game object. Just helps keep things organized. So after we instantiate this loot spawner up here, we're just going to go and we're going to set it for a 15-second destroy, and then that's going to get rid of it whenever we're done. And of course that can be set to anything. You can set all sorts of cool logic for it to destroy certain things faster than others. If you have a piece of junk item, you don't really want it to hang around forever. But if it's a really high-end weapon, you might give it an extra 20 seconds or something. It just kind of depends on you and how you're setting up your game. So let's come down here. This part goes back to that CSV video. They're kind of intertwined. So this is all I have to do for my CSV video, is add this to my instantiate, and it gives it an identity. And this is the first column that I'll speak about in that video. And from there, that's how I add all the sprites and everything else. So let's go back down here to the loot spawn, and this is where this part's going to pick up from that instantiate. So on creation, what this thing's going to do is we're going to create an offset position to move to. Okay, because our original position is wherever that player is. So if it's going to start here, and then we're going to create a space for it to go to. So in this case, I have a value that we're setting for this move to, and we'll use that move to over here. So we're getting our position for the player. And now what we're going to do is we're going to get a range. We're going to do a -7 to a 0.7, and this can be any number. Doesn't matter what it is. The larger, the further away it'll be. The closer it'll be. And we're just going to create a vector 2, and then we're going to add that to that input. So if we're at 0, 0, and then it's going to add -0.7. It's going to be one of these random numbers, and it's going to add it to both of those numbers, so you kind of end off in some random direction. And from there, what we're going to do is we're going to set that move to. Now up here, we're going to set our position. So this runs on update. So this, if you've seen my other video about the smooth damp and lerp and things like that, you need to feed it itself. So this is why we set it over here. So if we come up here, we're just going to run an update. We're going to do the smooth damp. We're going to get the position of the player is where we're starting. And then our target is what we created over here. So this is that random location. This will be our target. And then the smooth time is just time delta time multiplied by however smooth or slow you want it. From the smooth damp, then we come down to set our position. So that's how you end up creating that really neat little explosion effect once you kill something or whatever you might do. And it's pretty handy. It looks pretty nice. And of course you can set that to anything you want. Now if I have a whole set of monsters or something and I want to spawn them, that goes back up here. If I want the monsters to be the spawners or any other game object, we're just going to change this right here, this player. Because what you can do is you can say, okay, well, let's say I can spawn a couple monsters, right? We got 4 ghosts sitting over here. I just spawned 4 of them, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to change this to monster, because we're in the monster. Let's go monster, okay? Oops, monsters. Monster. So here we are in the monster game object. Now we only have 1 game object coming out of here, but we have 4 clones that we have to take care of. So we have to change it up slightly to be a for each loop. And this is one of the great things about visual scripting is you can get things going so fast. It's really quite amazing. So we're just going to take this up here, and then we're just going to switch this up. I mean, it's really quite amazing how you can just drag these lines and all of a sudden you have a whole new setup. So now if I come down here and I hit tab, now each one of my monsters has exploded some guts, right? So you could use this for any number of things, not just loot, but you could do dropping coins or whatever it might be. That's how you do it. It's really straightforward and really simple. So that's all there is for this part. It's probably one of the easier ones I've made, to be honest with you, because this is the standard instantiate. I mean, everybody's probably done one of these. This is the general setup you're going to do for just, spawning whatever. And from there, we come back to the loot spawn, and this has to be on your prefab so it can run right at the beginning. Now I want to dig into that CSV thing just a little bit. So that identity that I was assigning back in the very beginning, that's where this piece comes in. And if you watch that other video, you'll see these are 2 different sets of data that I'm bringing into my game object. And then this one here sets the sprite. So that sets the sprite. It'll get the name from that object or from that CSV, and then load the sprite from the resources folder. So now that I have it connected, what I can do is I can just come in here and I just hit tab, and you see, and then it explodes guts everywhere for all of the ghosts because we didn't change that back. but each one of the ghosts now upchucks random items. And that's where this CSV thing comes in really handy. I know people can build their own stuff in there, but it's one of those things. It's kind of like, I need to connect that one too. And what it does also, it's not just spawning the loot itself. It's doing a whole bunch of other things because of that CSV setup that I have. So if I go down here and I check out my loot, it's empty. Nothing's been spawned. If I spawn that, you see I have it set up to rename my items based off of quality and type. So here we have a junk coin. If I go to that, whoops, despawn too quick. We can go to common sword. Okay, well here's a common sword. Now what happens if we take a look at its attributes? So it came through, none of this was existing on that prefab. It's all added from that CSV. So I just kind of want to point that out, this is how that application of that works. It's one of the cooler things I've made because it makes it so much easier to manage everything from a spreadsheet versus building scripts and doing all this other stuff. And it's very, very quick. You don't get any lag or anything, and each one of these monsters is upchucking a whole bunch of stuff everywhere. It's pretty cool. So that's about all there is for this. Hopefully you guys are finding these videos useful, and definitely join us over on the Discord. Unity has an official Unity Discord for visual scripting, and it's good for you to come check it out because there's a lot of folks that know a lot of things on there. And like I said in the past, I'm very, very new to this. I've only been doing this since January. So if I can get this far, you guys can definitely get much further than I can. I'm a little slow sometimes when it comes to this stuff. So if I'm getting it, you'll definitely get it. So hang in there, guys. Thanks.